Hey, I wanted to show how I'm using ChatGPT Atlas, which is OpenAI's browser, their agentic browser, their competitor to Chrome, to develop websites. Um, it's kind of an interesting use case. When I first tried Atlas, I was pretty stoked. I was thinking, this is a few months ago. I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to go through my utility companies anymore to download PDFs for tax purposes. Atlas couldn't do that, though. It could not download PDFs. So it was kind of a bummer. I shelved it, and then a month later, I'm like, you know what? Let's bring this thing out. And if I'm developing a web page, I do want to ask it questions about the copy on my web page, just to see, like, what can I get out of this? What can Atlas give me if I'm critiquing my own web page? So for the past month, I've been working on a service called Open Graph Plus. And the long and short of Open Graph Plus, if you've ever worked with Open Graph, you've probably just like thrown a static image on there and then you link to it. But with Open Graph Plus, you can actually point it to these dynamic URLs and will take a screenshot of your web page, but it will hide certain things. So you can say like, "Hey, I want to hide my cookie banner on the screenshot, and I want to show this banner." Or if you're using Tailwind, there's these classes, OG plus hidden, uh, or it's hidden by default, and then OG plus block or flex or whatever, right? So it's just a developer friendly way of kind of plug and play Open Graph for your website if you want to improve that. So that's what I've been working on. Obviously, there's like a lot of landing page stuff that I have to worry about. There's a lot of content, and it's actually a lot more than just building stuff. Most of my time today is just spent on like, well, how can I sharpen the message of this? How can I make it clear that this is for developers? And we can see over here in this little chat window, there's some problems with critiquing the landing page, right? Like, okay, this is good. What's not working? I would agree. There are these two competing heroes. This one I'm going to delete because I had a developer plugged the URL for their website in there, and it actually came up with this big error message. Um, and it was not Open Graph; it was a misconfigured Cloudflare endpoint that was just like blocking Open Graph from even working on certain platforms. Um, that doesn't matter though. What mattered is that it looked like there was an error for Open Graph, and so that ultimately that person chose to not adopt Open Graph Plus. So I'm going to remove this and have those debug tools kind of later. But it is helpful. You will see certain things in here that you kind of agree with. Ideally, though, you corroborate it with actual people using your website. But I think this helps kind of develop a better initial hypothesis. So it's decent for landing pages, though you will find that the output for it gets pretty verbose. The page is trying too hard, right? The product is strong. Cut 30 to 40% of the content. So none of this is crazy. If you've ever developed a landing page before, you usually end up with a bunch of stuff and then you got to cut it down. So another thing I've noticed myself doing is I'll have like Claude Code kind of take a pass at the first implementation of this stuff, but there's no way that I can get this stuff out into Claude Code, right? In my Z editor. So what it'll do is it'll ask it, um, give me a markdown I can hand off to my LLM. So it'll take kind of its findings, and then I can copy and paste this thing into an LLM. For some reason, it did not give me. It's very verbose. One thing you will notice whenever you ask it to give you something like this, it just wants to go on and on and on. And I don't think it actually is tapping into your OpenAI settings. So that took a long time to go. Um, so give me an MD I can copy. All right, let's see if it works this time. All right, so there we go. You just copy this code whenever it's finished. This is a bit too much. I think if I actually gave this to Claude, it would do a lot of things that would kind of destroy what it is that I was working on. So I'm not going to paste this in here now. I've already had those edits, but um, I think this kind of shows an interesting agent to agent interaction that could happen here. Like it's not hard to imagine a future where you have your browser. Sure, there's some kind of agentic feature in it, and it would be nice if you could click a button and just send kind of this agent's ideas off to another agent to work on, and then come back. So I think there's some interesting things that maybe that's a browser add-in or something. Like, what if Claude Code had a browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, and Safari that could facilitate this in a more seamless way. So it's useful for that. I've applied the same kind of thinking to a pricing page, which I started going down this path, and I've decided that, hey, actually, I'm going to just get right down to business and simplify my pricing page. And I'm going to start kind of with a business plan. So um, I actually found this useful, right? Like, critique the pricing page, and it's going to give me, again, a a very long kind of explanation of the page. So there are some things though, right? Like, what are the usage limits? What's the value ladder, right? What's driving me crazy though, it does this thing will start going in circles, and that is something that drove me crazy just about like early AI, say a year or two ago. It would just start going in circles. For example, and what I mean by that is, all right, what's working? This is great, blah, 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 blah. But if I went down and actually did these fixes, like if I added usage limits and then I asked it to critique the page again, it would say something to the effect of like, hey, there's too much on this page. You shouldn't have usage limits. Um, the value ladder is missing, right? So sure, I could launch this thing with multiple plans, but the reality is I don't have tons of features on this thing yet, right? I want to test out the core idea of like, will people point this at their website and use these CSS features to take screenshots of their website and use that for Open Graph? That is like the core value proposition of this thing. So I could, refine the prompt and probably get that out of it. But, um, you know, if if I added the value ladder and showed the thing like, hey, here's the upgraded plan, and just kind of made up features that I don't have yet, that I haven't validated with real people, then it would complain like, hey, there's too many things going on here. So this is, it's almost like you don't want to read too deep into these, but it should just kind of get you thinking about it, and you should have an answer for it, right? Like, and this one, I would just be like, oh, shut up, ChatGPT. Um, we've already been through this before. So it's just kind of to give you ideas, really to, I think through completeness. And it's okay to say no, no, no to a bunch of these things. Um, the last kind of prompting I was doing helped me like simplify this timeline to show I'm gonna have early access pricing and then general availability pricing. This is kind of my way of rewarding people who um, use the service early, right? They're taking a bit of a risk. They're trying a new product, and I want to reward people that way. And it's like, okay, I'm going to give you a nice discount, and you can have it for a year. This thing was complaining about that. And it was just giving me all sorts of yada, yada, yada things to fix about it. And it did help me kind of simplify it, but now it's complaining about other things. And then as far as like the pricing goes, it's actually like really hard to know because we're in this like kind of transitional phase of um, I guess like how do you value SaaS versus not? Um, that's really like probably a topic for another video. Like, you see everybody thinking that they can just like kind of vibe code everything, but that's really not how the world will continue working. There's going to be value for services that just work, especially for things that require some level of hosting. Like, nobody really wants to run managed Chrome instances, which is what the service does. Um, but you will find that like some of the pricing knowledge that LLMs have, and even like estimates of how long it will take to build things, will be like pretty off. So that's something to keep in mind if you start engaging with an LLM in this way. So I guess to kind of sum that up, ChatGPT Atlas is marginally useful if you just need to like have a conversation about a landing page. It will kind of give you a complete list of things, but if you start to act on those things, and you implement those findings, then it will begin to tell you the opposite and say like, no, you have too many plans. Um, yeah, you have usage limits on here, and it's just overwhelming the people. So who may be reading this. So that's something to keep in mind, is like really just look at the list is a complete list and not necessarily things you want to act on. And I think just generally that is true for LLMs, and that kind of comes down to like taste. How do I want this thing to be? Do I want it to feel more like AWS, where we have like this highly metered usage, or do I want it to feel more like, hey, you just hook this thing up to your website and it just works? And that's going to be something that you have to decide, and it's something that your LLMs won't decide for you. So that's a pretty good example of like how humans are still useful, at least for now.